I will say I have never been to Egypt, and I am very excited for today's Dream Away, and to go live, talk to a few experts, and hear all about the kind of experience we can have. So let's get started. I'll do a brief overview before I hand it off. Again, I am Stephen Smith with Direct Travel and Vision Travel, and I am really excited that you're joining us for our latest segment of our Dream Away series. And we are live from Egypt with Abercrombie & Kent, a great partner of ours. We're always delighted to work with them. I would ask that if you have any questions throughout the entire event, please enter them into the Q&A. We love when you have questions. We will go through at the end. A panel of us will answer any and all questions that you have. Please make sure you put them in the Q&A throughout. As well, we always like to have a few polls, get you involved. So we'll have a couple polls. If you see me pop on, once the thing has started, you'll know a poll's coming. And please just put your answer in, and we'll tally those up, share the results, and move on. So without further ado, I am delighted to welcome, and now he is not live from Egypt, but he knows a lot about it. I'm delighted to welcome Sean Johnson from Abercrombie & Kent, who's going to share a little bit about the company and about the incredible destination before we go live in destination, which we'll talk about in a moment. Sean, how are you?
I'm great, Stephen. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm good. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited to learn more. I don't know enough about Egypt, and I haven't been there. So this is a highlight Dream Away for me. So I'm going to leave you to it, and I will disappear for a bit, and I'll see you back when we have our first poll.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and good afternoon and evening to everyone. I'm really glad to be with you today to talk about one of my absolute favorite places on the planet. It was my first trip with Abercrombie & Kent when I started 16 years ago, and I'll admit that I was a little nervous, but from literally the moment I arrived, I just fell into the arms of Abercrombie & Kent and fell in love with Egypt, fell in love with the company. And I'm really excited to share just a little bit about what we do there with all of you today. Before we get started, I also think it's a little helpful just for you to understand a little bit about us. We were founded in 1962 by Geoffrey Kent and his parents in Kenya with a single vehicle and a dream to share their passion for the African bush. I'm going to say that they were pioneers of the modern safari, and they are what we would call glamping today, or they operated a safari with what we would call glamping today. And for nearly 60 years, we have designed and operated experiential adventures intertwined with luxury, staying true to the Kent's pioneering philosophy to provide adventures by day, comfort, and luxury by night. And over the last nearly 60 years, we have taken that show on the road. We operate in more than 100 countries on all 7 continents. And what really sets us apart is that we have our own operating offices and teams on the ground in over 30 countries across the globe. So in many cases, just like what we're going to talk about today, it's our own staff, our own team, all of us reporting ultimately to Mr. Kent, just like I do, with certainly the expectation that we're going to give you an extraordinary experience. But today, we're going to focus just on the Middle East and North Africa. So we're going to speak on Egypt and have a little side conversation about the opportunity, if you'd like, to take it to extend in Jordan. Abercrombie & Kent operates both small group journeys as well as tailor-made private experiences. So I'll talk a little bit about those. In Egypt, it's a great value to travel with a group. So I'm going to talk primarily about our group experiences, but know that we can replicate any of this for a private individual or couple or family that wants to travel privately. It's just a little more cost effective to spread some of the private opening costs over a small group than it is to do it for individual. But we're happy to work with you either way, or with your travel advisor rather, either way. Our small groups, just to talk a little bit about those, are no more than 18 guests. So they're very small, and we're using vehicles that are much larger than what we need. So, we never fill a vehicle more than 60%. You can almost be assured always of a window seat, likely the seat next to you free. Oftentimes the row, you have the whole row to yourself if you want it. We also, have all of the luxury amenities and great hotels that you'd expect from a luxury tour operator. But a couple of highlights I always like to mention with our groups are our traveling bellboy, who allows our guests to literally zip up their bags, leave them in their room, and like magic, they'll leave them in their room in Cairo, and like magic, they'll already be checked in on board the Sunboat 3 when they arrive in Luxor to embark on the ship. We also include a great feature midway through each one of these journeys, and that's a complimentary laundry service that's delivered by our travelers valet. And I find that no one, no matter who they are, likes to receive a laundry bill from a hotel, because they always seem like they're about 17 times the cost of what they should be. And so our guests have really found those have been a terrific addition. So the itinerary that you see, the map that you see here on Egypt and the Nile, is our top selling group journey. We've got literally dozens of departures of this very special trip. It's a great 10-day action-packed adventure through Egypt. And I'll just mention that Egypt is right now, and has been for the last year and a half, our #1 selling destination. It was the 2 years before the pandemic, and prior to the Egyptian Revolution in 2011, it had been our #1 destination for 4 years. So Egypt is hot, it is in demand. And this Egypt and the Nile 10-day program, well priced, and really never fails to impress our guests every single day of the trip. We also have a private version of this journey. We call this our signature series. So it operates essentially the same trip, but with a private car, driver, and guide. The only big difference I'd say is that there aren't as many meals included on the private version, because for us to price in the meals for a really wide selection of people, some people want to dine out and have an extravaganza every night. Some people want to go local. And so we leave a lot of the meals on your own. Breakfast, of course, is included each day, but a really great way to visit Egypt privately is available quite easily on one of our signature series. The trip I'd like to talk about today is one that we crafted because, and I'll be really transparent, we're running out of space on Egypt and the Nile. It has been really selling well for us, and 2022 is really looking full. We have dozens of departures, but we are literally running out of hotel space to add more, and space on the boats. And I'm going to preface this whole tour by saying that every travel publication that you read right now is talking about travelers upgrading their rooms, seeking out access, and wanting to experience the very best of the best as they accelerate checking things off their wander lists or bucket lists. So we tasked our product development team to get together with our operations folks in Egypt and use the connections that we have with the Ministry of Antiquities and the government, and our hotel partners, as well as the boats. And when I'm finished, you're going to realize that this price point for 13 days is a relative bargain. It's almost what I'd call a steal with everything that's included. Before I get into the details, I want to tell you a quick story about my first trip to Egypt. And it's about my experience visiting Abu Simbel. And really, I want to use this to illustrate the strength of an A&K resident tour director who really brings history to life in Egypt. All of our groups are led by Egyptologists. So our resident tour directors have at least a 4-year degree in Egyptian history and culture, and they are magnificent. And I'll say that when we arrived by air early in the morning, we had about a 10-minute ride from the airport. And as we were walking, our guide started telling us the story of Ramses II, who was the longest reigning and most powerful pharaoh to ever rule over Egypt. And we had already learned in Giza at the pyramids that the kings spent their entire lives preparing for the afterlife. So they had everything they could possibly need. They had carts, they had dishes, they had flatware, They even had concubines that they would bury with them because they might need those. They would need those in the afterlife. And another thing that they needed in the afterlife was a likeness of themselves. So you see lots of statues all over Egypt, most of them with part of the face removed. And that the likeness was so that when Ramses II came back in the afterlife, he would be able to recognize himself, know that he was ruler of Egypt, and he could step back into his life in the afterlife. Well, the only problem with that is the next pharaoh didn't want the last pharaoh coming back. And so the first thing they would do when they would ascend to power is have the face removed of the likeness that the past ruler had left. So Ramses II, knowing this and having done it to his predecessor, wanted to beat the system. And so he had 52 likenesses of himself, including these 4 66-foot high statues at the temple of Ramses II in Abu Simbel. He had 52 likenesses of himself scattered throughout the country, some even outside of Egypt, so that they couldn't possibly get to all of them, and he would be able to take back his place as ruler of Egypt. Of course, to our knowledge, that never happened, but it really did make for a fascinating story, and it explained a lot about some of the things that we see around Egypt. So I'm very excited to introduce this new Pharaohs and Pyramids adventure that we are starting in January of 2022. We have just 5 departures. It's what I'd like to call a slowed down version because it includes a 7-night Nile cruise on board the privately chartered 36-guest Sunboat 3. And we are going to spend a total of 5 nights in Cairo at the really beautiful Four Seasons Nile Plaza 3 at the beginning, 2 at the end. I'll get to that in a little bit. And we include some extraordinary insider access, stuff that you're not going to be able to do on your own. And we don't even include all of this on our regular journey, which is pretty spectacular. One of those things is standing at the base of the Sphinx, and I'll have a photo of that in just one second. And the other thing that I just want to mention is the privately chartered air. So all of the internal flights are on privately chartered aircraft. So for any of you who have been to Egypt, have friends who have been, there's no 3 a.m. wake up call to go to Abu Simbel. So let's kind of walk through this itinerary just so I can share some of the great things that we're including here. The first thing is we're going to spend 3 nights in Cairo at the Four Seasons. And during that time, we'll use that as our base to visit Giza, where the Great Pyramids and the beautiful Sphinx are. And the first really exciting bit of insider access will be actually standing right at the paws of the Sphinx. So if you can see my cursor, we're going to be standing right here. Now, normal people, if you will, are standing someplace a little bit, about 100 yards back from here, and they can stand all along the side of the Sphinx, but they can't have their picture taken right by the paw, which is an extraordinarily Instagrammable moment, and that's included as a standard feature on this journey. Another thing that's included as a standard feature are a 2-room Cornish suite. So everyone in the group will have a suite with, as you can see, gorgeous views of the Nile River in a really beautiful and modern Four Seasons hotel. We are chartering the Sunboat 3, which is a 36-guest vessel. We're going to have 2 groups. You heard me say that our maximum group size is 18. So we're going to have 2 groups of 17 that will come together on the boat, but we will have our own vehicles. We will have our own Egyptologists. And all of the ground programs will operate separately, but will come together and share the vessel. But all ANK people as part of this group. And if we only sell one of the groups, we will not sell the boat to anyone else. So it's just dedicated to the people who are on this really spectacular upgraded journey that we're including here. We're also going to include, next year is a significant milestone year since the discovery of King Tutankhamun, and that King Tut's tomb was discovered by accident by a scientist and archaeologist named Howard Carter. And one of our insider access moments here is a visit to Howard Carter's house. This is sort of in celebration or in recognition of the 100th anniversary of King Tut's discovery in 1922. So that will be an exciting opportunity to have a private tour of Howard Carter's house included here. We will also be visiting Queen Nefertari's tomb. Now, Queen Nefertari was Ramses II's favorite wife. He was, as I said, the most powerful king. He sired the most children, but Nefertari was the one. And when you visit when you visit Ramses II's temple, where we saw the statues, Nefertari's got a small temple next to him. She's the only one that got her own temple. And then she's got in the Valley of the Queens, a beautiful tomb that is colorful and the most detailed of any other tomb in the Valley of the Queen. So again, she was also a very powerful woman in her time, and her tomb reflects that. And we will have special access to a tomb that's not typically included in a normal journey to Egypt. We also will be visiting the Museum of Luxor, which has a rich collection of jewelry, pottery, and statues, and we'll have a private guided tour through that museum as well. I'm really excited. I always love a good hot air balloon ride, and one of our special experiences in Luxor will be a hot air balloon flight. We'll be taking off over the West Bank and seeing the sunrise over the Temple of Karnak. You might, in this picture, see I didn't put a little arrow here, but I'll move my hand. This is Hatshepsut's temple here, which is something that everyone sees, but we'll have the opportunity on this trip to see it by air. We'll also visit the Temple of Habu and see it by air as well. This is the Temple of Habu. And again, we'll have a special visit, and we're able to include these extra special features because we've slowed this trip just a little bit down, and those extra 3 days allow us to see at least one site each morning or afternoon, and then have some downtime to enjoy ourselves as well. Another thing that I'm really excited about that's included here, Abercrombie & Kent has a philanthropic division that supports 46 projects around the world in more than 20, I think it's 24 countries right now. And one of those is the Fantasia Cultural Center, which is a holistic school that really focuses on the whole child, their overall wellness, including nutrition, as well as their academics and playtime. So really looking at the whole child, and it focuses on kids from 4 to 16 years old, and we'll have an opportunity to visit this school, visit with the kids and teachers, and our guests always enjoy meeting local children. I think it's always a good thing for us to see the future and to see the future being looked after well, and we're really proud to support that. As we wind down the cruise part of this itinerary, we'll be visiting the temple of Khnum at Esna as well, Khnum at Esna, and we'll have some time to visit Kam Ambo, and this is a very traditional day. We'll have a barbecue lunch outside in a beautiful place, and in the evening we'll have what we call our Galabeya night. So we'll have visited 1 or 2 markets along the way that people will have the opportunity to procure a Galabeya, and they're really cheap. I think they start at $15, and you can probably negotiate that down to $5. I learned to bargain in Cairo at the El Khalili. I don't get the right in my throat, but the El Khalili Bazaar, and it's a fun experience. And everybody dresses up. Some of the people come prepared, and they have their makeup done in Cleopatra style. Some of them even bring headdresses or procure headdresses, and it really is a very fun experience that we include on all of our journeys, and we'll of course include it on this one as well. And then toward the end of the cruise, we'll also have a day trip to Aswan, or from Aswan to Abu Simbel, as well as a felucca ride, which is just a small boat, again, a more local way to see the Nile. We'll see the unfinished obelisk, which is a very famous architectural piece. And then we also will visit the Nubian Museum and the Aswan Spice Market. So again, we've slowed things down just a bit. I've already shown you Abu Simbel, and I know Renee is going to talk a little bit about that as well. So at the end of that, we'll take that privately chartered plane from Aswan back up to Cairo, where we will spend 2 more nights at the Four Seasons. And here is one of the most special inclusions on the trip, and that is a private opening of Wat Ye's tomb, which was just discovered in 2019. So just 2 years ago. It is not open to the public, but it will be open for us by the Ministry of Antiquity. There will be a representative from the ministry with us, as well as a member of the team who helped find and excavate this historic tomb opening. This is in the town of Saqqara. So we're very excited to be including that on this journey. And
Sean, I'm going to jump in and interrupt you. A great time for a poll, but I wanted to say, you know, this is one of the things that we love about working with you, with Abercrombie and Ken, is this exclusive access to something of this nature. You know, it's special. It makes the experience so much more. And really, it's exclusive. It's not something that anybody can arrange. So, you know, I like to highlight this. This is really special, and
keeping up
and
with
it's
you are the
right. You are the Joneses. It is the A&K factor, as I like to call it. So, why don't we throw the poll up on the screen? 2022 is a milestone anniversary of Howard Carter's discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun, an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. In what year was the tomb found? Sean did allude to it earlier. We'll see if everyone is paying attention to it. I cannot vote, so thankfully I cannot get it wrong, though I was paying attention. But if you want to just put that answer in, we'll tally that up and we'll let Sean continue on with this. You know what an amazing tour you've outlined here, and all the little touches I think are so incredible. So looks like most of the audience was paying attention. A few maybe were not. Or maybe they're just having some fun with us, but the answer is 1922. It is 100 years. So thank you. And Sean, I will see you again soon.
That's great. So the last thing I want to mention in Egypt, that we're including a visit to the brand new National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, which is home to the royal mummies. Some of you may have seen the great event that was hosted a couple of months ago, that everyone was dressed in period pharaonic attire and what locals would have been wearing. And there was a spectacular laser light show that accompanied the procession of the mummies. They had special vehicles created for them, and it was a really cool procession and a cool thing to see, that was televised around the world and really got some great coverage. For the departures in October and November and December, we are hopeful that at least in November, December for sure, the Grand Egyptian Museum, at long last, we believe, will in fact be opening. It's ready to open right now, but the Egyptian officials are waiting for the world to open up just a bit more, because they want to have, you know, the event of all events with dignitaries, politicians, movie stars that are here to make this an extraordinary opening. But that will be the largest collection of antiquities in the world, including all of King Tut's gold and something like 100,000 different pieces that will be included in that museum on display at any one time. And more in storage that will be traded out over time. So we're very excited about that. So that's Pharaohs and Pyramids sort of in a nutshell. Happy to answer questions about that in a little bit. But I also wanted to mention, a lot of people, when they look at a map or look at a brochure, they see an extension available to Jordan. And so I wanted to just mention a couple of highlights of an extension to Jordan. It's also a destination that you can visit as a standalone in about a week, but that's how I did it. But it's a really great place for antiquities and to see some ancient architecture that is in extraordinarily good condition, you know, all these thousands of years later. So typically we recommend a 5-day extension that will start in Amman. We'll stay in some place like the Four Seasons or the St. Regis. So again, we're staying in great hotels, and then we'll see we'll see several Roman amphitheaters like this one, and there's an opportunity to have someone stand on the stage, you stand up at the top or any place here, and they just sort of talk in a projected way, and you can hear them without any amplification, which is always impressive. Just extraordinary that technology was designed a long time ago. You'll see a lot of the sort of what we'll call the living past of the time of Caesar. So the Romans, the Greeks, you know, everybody came through here and left their mark in this place called Jerash. And no visit to Jordan is complete without a visit to the Dead Sea, which is so salinic that there is no life, and everyone who gets in it can float. Doesn't matter what your body makeup is, you will float and you will rise right to the top. So that's always kind of an interesting experience, and very popular to get mud baths, and there's some great spas and great spa treatments that are available here. There's lots of biblical history here. You'll see the Promised Land. You will see lots of biblical history here in Jordan. And my favorite part of Jordan, and the most popular tourist attraction, and I want to go back just to hike through Petra again, but Petra is the #1 attraction in Jordan and one of the top wonders of the world, man-made wonders of the world, created by the Nabateans. There are officially 27 theories on what this building was. It is called the Treasury, but no one believes that it actually was a bank or any type of place where they kept money. But it's an extraordinary sight to behold. You have a little bit of a hike to get there. You can take a horse and a horse-drawn carriage to get through the winding rocks to arrive at the Treasury. But in all, you have the opportunity to hike or be conveyed by some type of animal or carriage about 6 miles one way. And I have to say, it was a really invigorating day. Most of it's not too hard. And the hard parts, like I said, there are ways to get there if it's something that you're interested in doing. There's a great evening at Petra that you can go. I think the most beautiful part is seeing all the rocks lit by luminary. And then we also have an opportunity to visit, sort of in the footsteps of Lawrence of Arabia, a place called Wadi Rum, which is a gorgeous red desert and has been featured in lots of movies, including most recently a couple of the Star Wars movies. And we have an opportunity to sleep in Berber tents. There are also Martian tents if you want something that looks more like the movies. We typically include the Berber tents if you want more authenticity. But again, really a beautiful country to visit, easy to tack on to Egypt, also pretty easy to get to with nonstop service from places like Chicago and New York. There's a new United flight in 2022 that will go nonstop from Washington Dulles to Amman. So again, that's a good thing to keep in mind if you're thinking about traveling to the Middle East. So I think I've talked enough, and I'm going to introduce. Are we doing another poll now, or are we talking to Renee next?
Why don't we throw another poll up, and then we'll bring Renee on board.
I like to make people wait for Renee.
That's right. The star.
Yes.
So how many statues of Ramses the second were placed around Egypt at the time of his death? I know Sean said it a few times.
If anybody gets this wrong, they really weren't paying attention.
Yeah, that's right. There'll be trouble. It's interesting how many there were, because it seems to me, and I don't know my history well enough, but it seems to be, it could be symbolic of something in the calendar, and whether there was purpose there or just a random number.
A higher percentage. More people were paying attention. It went up.
More people were, and I'm positive a couple of them put those answers in just for fun, because they knew we wanted 100% of 52. So anyways, thank you to everyone for participating in the polls. We always enjoy that. And now I think without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to Sean, because he's got somebody to introduce. There he is. So that's a picture. I think we've got him live.
I'm
there
excited.
He is.
We've got Renee Schneeberger, who is Direct Travel Vision Travel's Vice President of Supplier Management, who is actually in Egypt right now with a group of his friends. And I think, Renee, you are live in Aswan, right?
I absolutely am. So thrilled to be here. And Sean, everything you said so far along the way, in terms of how you guys take care of the folks, the guests on the ground, is absolutely magical. Experiences throughout the day and luxury and comfort at night. Where I currently am is the legendary Aswan Old Cataract Hotel. It is operated by Sofitel, a French Accor company brand. It's called the Sofitel Legend Old Cataract Hotel. It was originally constructed in 1899. It is very famous for many, many reasons, but particularly for the Agatha Christie suite. Agatha Christie wrote Death on the Nile here in this hotel, and it is a fabulous movie. If you haven't watched it in a while, the remake is about to come out, but the original from the 1970s with Mia Farrow, with a young Maggie Smith, and many other world-class actors and actresses is one of those things to see. I am sitting here in the library facing the lobby with the beautiful flowers and chandeliers. This hotel is authentic Egypt. It is a high-end luxury quality views of the ocean, views of the Nile, I should say, that are absolutely spectacular right at the first cataract here. I want to start with a testimonial. I had a group of 13 travelers. Originally, we were planning on doing this in April of 2020. All of you on the call know what happened. This thing called the pandemic came along and we had to postpone it twice. Not only was A&K easy to work with to make those adjustments and find a new date, but once we were getting ready to go, there were a lot of questions. What tests do I need? What proof of vaccination is required? How do we make this all work? And for many of my fellow travelers, friends and family that are with me here, it is their first time ever traveling to the Middle East. It is their first time traveling since the pandemic, and there were a lot of questions. And I just said, listen, trust in the process, fly to Cairo, and you will be taken care of. And literally at 1:30 in the morning on Tuesday night, a few days ago, I got a text from my friends who had the first ones to touch on the ground. And all they said is, we felt like rock stars. A&K representatives were at the gate when we walked off the jet bridge, whisked us away to a private lobby area where we had our immigration paperwork taken care of, our tests checked, our luggage collected, and within half an hour, we were on our own van, ready to head to the hotel. Now, keep in mind, a lot of flights from overseas arrive in Egypt in the middle of the night, and usually guests want to get to the hotel pretty quickly and go to bed, and A&K made that effortless. Every single other guest arriving on various different flights, by the end, when I met them a few days ago, confirmed the same in their own words, in their own language. So traveling with a brand, a company with the reputation and the representation on the ground like Abercrombie & Kent makes that trip to an exotic destination just so much more simple and so much less anxiety inducing. But once you're on the ground, it really becomes amazing. And I want to share just a couple of touches here. I think, Sean, you have a little video to share. So here we are in the inner chamber of Ramses II's temple at Abu Simbel. In fact, there's a fifth statue of Ramses in this temple. It is the second to the right. These three statues, there are four, as you see. These three statues represent Ramses as the king, the Horus falcon god, the sun god Ra, and then the god of darkness, Ptah, on the very left. He is not illuminated by the sun when you get in. And here we are in a private visit of this temple, just the 13 of us yesterday afternoon. Again, one of those exclusive access opportunities that Abercrombie & Kent can provide. I am currently traveling on a custom built trip. We wanted specific things included. I had the fortune many, many years ago to work in Egypt and knew my way around, but all of my friends didn't. So we built this ideal itinerary, which very much mimics the Pharaohs and Pyramids program that Sean just shared. And here, this picture that you see right now is last night's sound and light show. This is something I highly recommend if you have the time to go to Abu Simbel, not just on the hour and a half extension excursion that most operators offer, but when you do it with Abercrombie & Kent, with that full day experience, you have the chance to stay there and watch the sound and light show. It was a transformative classical music experience with projections of various stages of the temple, how it was originally found, covered in sand, almost all the way up to the neck of Ramses statues. And remember, they are 65 feet tall. Nowadays, the temple is in immaculate shape, part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site program. And many of you remember when the Aswan High Dam was built in the late 1960s, these temples had to be raised, to be geographically and grammatically accurate, raised 300 feet above the Lake Nasser sea level in order to be preserved. And you get to see all of that, experience all of that history and culture. So absolutely fantastic. And as Sean said, every detail of the program with Abercrombie & Kent is there to give you history and education, but also make it fun and entertaining. Our Egyptologist who is with us is a published writer, a well-known person in the Egyptology environment, has given lectures to US Congress, has been to the United States many times for various scholarly programs and university visits and archaeology programs. So absolutely the best of the best. And Sean, I'll turn it over to you for a moment because I am just in awe to be here again in Egypt, to experience this fantastic destination and to learn and absorb. And every time you come back, there is something new to discover, and your team, your folks on the ground, make that effortless. They know their ins and outs, they know the timing to avoid the crowds if there is an area where there are more visitors. And the one thing I will say, that private jet sounds really, really cool because we spent a fair amount of time on Egypt Air. It is not the most convenient way. Well, it's the only way to get around really, unless you do private jet, but it's not the most convenient flight experience. As you know, some of these airports are rather rugged, and particularly the one in Abu Simbel, and you spend quite a bit of time waiting. Flights aren't always on time. This is just the part of the world we live in. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Renee. And I think the one thing I'll just say about that is that the nice thing about flying privately, now having had the chance to do it a couple of times, is the plane leaves when you get there. There's no like waiting around, and you know everything is just centered around your group or you individually, and it's a really it's a cool experience. Yeah. So the other thing I just want to kind of throw out there is we only I think have 2 seats left for the whole year next year, but we do have an Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. We call it Wings Over the World, and it's all privately chartered air between those 3 countries. And that's a little bit longer trip and a little bit more expensive because of all the air, but again, in these times where people are looking for private options, it really is an extraordinary way to see these countries that might not be as easy to get around on your own.
Absolutely. So I would add one more thing, and that is really the importance of, if you have interest in this part of the world, travel sooner rather than later. Many folks may not know, but tourism in Egypt is almost 80% of GDP under normal circumstances. So that means thousands and thousands of visitors every single day through many of these temples and ruins. And I can honestly say this is day number 4 of our program. If we ever visited a temple with more than 5 or 6 other guests besides us, that was a record. It is extremely low frequency at the moment. I know as 2022 kicks in, volumes go up, more ships come into service, more tours start to operate, and then into 2023 it will return to sort of pre-pandemic levels. So there are spots available for the rest of the year and into 2022. Contact your travel advisor now if you're passionate and interested in going. That avoiding of crowds is priceless, especially in a place that has so much history, 3,500, 4,000 years of just amazing stories to tell. And to be able to be in that temple and take that video with nobody else there, and I didn't have to bribe anyone to do it, is really one of those things you'll never forget.
I like that you mentioned bribery. Corruption is alive and well in some parts of the world.
It is.
Renee, I think that's a very valid point. Is the we were in Europe recently, and it was a lot low frequency. I like that term as well. It is a great time to be traveling, that's for sure. And sorry, Sean, I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't think we mentioned that Renee is as you could tell, he's live. We've got people walking behind him. He's in the lobby. It is midnight there, around midnight, isn't it, Renee? So
in the morning.
Yeah, we appreciate obviously Renee being with us, and we would have had him outside, but there wasn't a lot to see at this hour, and we wanted to make sure it was evening for those of us, or late afternoon for those of us in North America. So otherwise we would have had him outside showing you all kinds of live shots of what you can see. So I think that we're ready to get into Q&A. I don't see a lot of questions, so I'm gonna just say, if you have any questions about any of the tours for Renee, about his experience right now, please put them in the Q&A. I did see one in the chat, which was about why one of the tours is not going to Alexandria. I don't know, Sean, do you want to address that?
Neither of them go to Alexandria. Somebody had put in that they thought it wasn't open. It is actually open for tourists, and we do take them there on a private basis. It's someplace that we've not included in our group journeys, I think because we're really I'm going to say more focused on antiquities. And while there are some in Alexandria, I think it's more well known for its beach and the waterfront. Renee, you work there. Am I hitting that on target?
Absolutely
I'm a
right.
generalist, not the expert on this one.
There are a couple of Roman temples and one Greek temple that are worth seeing per se, but when you come to Egypt, for the most part, you want to see the Egyptian, the pyramids, the temples, the statues, all of that. And so that tends to take you south of Cairo and down the valley of the Nile rather than into the Delta.
Yes, but like I said, we absolutely do arrange it on a private basis for folks. And Stephen, also, thanks for reminding me, we do have an offer for everyone that I'll just mention. So thanks for joining us today. And I wanted to extend A&K's appreciation for our partners at Direct Travel and Vision Travel and affiliates, and offer a $250 per person savings if you make a booking to Egypt or Jordan, or you know what, we'll make it anywhere. But with us through the end of the year, and if you call January 1st or 2nd, Renee knows people will be happy to make this work for you in the new year as well. So that's just a thank you from us at A&K, and just for Direct and Vision being such great partners. We're happy to extend that on to your advisors to have for their clients.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We certainly appreciate that. So let's get to a few more questions. And of course, if you are interested, talk to your travel advisor. They're going to be able to work with you, and they'll be in contact with A&K to make sure that you get the perfect tour for what you're looking for. We do have a question here. Do you charge a supplemental for single travelers?
We do. We are passing along the cost of the other half of the hotel rooms. So that is not an A&K decision, but the tours are based on two people sharing, because most of our clients are traveling in pairs. And so we basically take the cost of the hotels and divide them by two. Most tours do that. All cruise ships do that. And it's the way that our tours are priced. So there is a supplement, but it is only the other half of the hotel room. We're not charging you for the meals. And I know some of the big cruise ships charge 100%. So you're paying for the meals and the entertainment too. We're just charging for the other half of the room.
Absolutely. And I can just attest, this is not a part of the world where solo or single rooms per se are available with just one bed. They're generally either two twins or a queen or a king size room that accommodates two guests. So that's part of why you have that extra cost.
Yes.
Okay. We have a comment here, actually, an apology for missing the first bit of the presentation, but this client or guest is traveling with A&K in about 6 weeks on a private Egypt tour, and said, should we expect a very low volume of tourists in the country? So I know we talked about what you're seeing right now, Renee. Sean and/or Renee, is the expectation that will continue about 6 weeks from now? Or do you expect that volume to increase?
It will gradually increase, but it will not explode overnight. So you're going to be traveling just after the holidays. And so things start to pick up a little bit, but it's nowhere near what it was when my last full season working here, which was in 1993-94. There were over 500 ships on the Nile circulating back and forth between Luxor and Aswan. Right now, it's 35 to 40. By January, it'll be 50. So it's still a far cry from what the peak season looked like, but it will be a little bit more guests than currently.
And I have another stat. Not even pre-pandemic, pre-Egyptian revolution in 2011, there were 50,000 visitors a day to the Museum of Antiquities, where King Tut's funerary mask and all his gold collection was kept. 50,000 people a day. Like literally, when you were in the gold room, you were being pushed from the people behind you. So there was no lingering. You saw it for a moment and you were just pushed on through. Today, there are fewer than 5,000 visitors to that museum every day. So that's under 10%. That's something. Prepared to go from 5 to 50,000 in the next 6 weeks. So I think you will find that Egypt will continue to be not terribly busy. You'll definitely see other people there, but and certainly in the luxury hotels, and there are other guests, but I don't think you're going to feel that you're crowded out at all. So that's actually a great question, and thank you for asking that.
Yeah, and there's a couple of additional things I want to add on here. I saw a quick comment pop in about the GEM, the Great Egyptian or the Grand Egyptian Museum, not being open. That is true. It is finished and ready to go. It was supposed to open a few weeks ago, but the Egyptian government really wants this foreign dignitary big event. It is a milestone when one thinks about how long it took for this project to be completed. And to really bring Egyptology and all of these monuments and artifacts to a whole new way of modern display. Because we've both been to the Egyptian Museum on the Nile in downtown Cairo, right next to Tahrir Square. It is sort of a hodgepodge of things mixed together in as little space as they have available. So this new museum will be great. It is not open to the public right now, but the National Museum where the mummies are is open, and I will be seeing that with my group actually early next week when we're back in Cairo as well. So very much looking forward to that. And again, A&K has the opportunity there to do the restoration lab where scientists analyze and preserve these mummies as an exclusive access, which my group was fortunate to secure spots for. Those are the types of things that really will bring a trip to life. Yes, it may be a few dollars more than another program, but what you get and what this experience is like is something that you'll never forget. And you said it early on, we hear it from our clients every day. I'm ready to go. I want to spend the money to get the best experience. And there's just no question when it comes to the Middle East, A&K is the leader in the space. You have the great people on the ground that know this place, that take care of you and make it effortless. So I highly encourage you, if you're interested, do it now, because this golden opportunity of fewer crowds is not going to last forever.
I'd agree with
that. Well put. Okay, well, other than right now, what is the best time of year to travel to Egypt?
Between my recommendation, and it's primarily weather related, is October to March. It's just a bit cooler. It can get very hot in the desert, but it's pretty comfortable. I mean, you're looking at 70s and 80s typically during the day in what we would consider winter. In the summer, you can get well over 100, and it's just very hot in the summer. We only operate group journeys typically from September through, I want to say, like the end of April. We might have a couple of family things in the summertime, but mostly we're busy October to March.
Yeah, and I would second that. Right now, we were in Abu Simbel yesterday, and including this morning, it was 85 degrees in the daytime. It dropped down to about 50 at night. It's a nice difference, but you're outdoors. These monuments are in the middle of the desert. The Valley of the Kings, for example, yes, they're tombs, but you're still having to walk through the Valley of the Kings to get to the entrance of the tombs. And that difference between 110, 120 in the summer, in the hot parts of the year versus winter is definitely a welcome difference. I don't do heat well to begin with. I personally like October, November slightly better. It tends to be a bit more weather stable. In the January, February, March window, sometimes you get the Sahara sandstorm impacts that can come across. But it doesn't really matter, right? Weather happens whether we're here or not. So anytime between October and March is great.
We always have bottled water. Every time you get back in the car on the coach, it will be offered to you. And my one bit of unsolicited advice:
drink it
in Egypt. Drink it. It's a very important thing to keep hydrated.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm in Toronto right now, and 85 degrees sounds really nice. It is not 85 here, I'll tell you that. Okay, so we've got a couple individuals are asking if you can, Sean, if you can recap the dates and pricing and availability again. I don't know whether you want to pull up the presentation, or you probably got it in your memory.
I think I can do the base price from memory. So and there are a few $100s difference for seasonality, for sort of over the holidays, best time of year. But the Egypt and the Nile, which is a 10-day program, is around $7,500 per person to start. And that includes the lead-in stateroom that's on the Sunboat 4, which is if you want to say it's an 80 passenger ship. So again, it's a small vessel, and there's 3 decks of passenger cabins. Renee, it's been 16 years since I've been on this boat, so it's been renovated since then, but I'm just the numbers are maybe a little bit off. But there's an increase in price to stay on higher decks, which is every ship in the world. And then there are a few suites toward the front of the ship, and I want to say I think there's a king suite and a pharaoh suite or something along those lines, and those are a bit higher in price, just simply because they're more space and they're suites. But starting price point is $7,500 for 10 days, and then the 13-day program is about $12,500 per person, again, for the minimum accommodation on the Sunboat 3, which is the 36 guest ship. And again, that goes up for the higher decks and the suites. But again, the deck difference is not very much. The suites are where the price goes up by $1,000 or $2,000 for the biggest suite per person.
Now, keep in mind, as you mentioned, for that $12,000, and it's US dollars, the prices that you mentioned.
Thank you. Yes.
Clarify that. You are getting the private jet service, right, rather than flying on Egypt Air. And that's a huge benefit.
And 5 nights at the Four Seasons Nile Plaza in 1-bedroom suites with great views of the Nile. So it really is, everything about that trip is upgraded. And if you look in many places in the world with us, even, I mean, a 13-day trip in Africa would cost $5,000 more than that. So it's a very good bargain. And again, NK Egypt is such a well-oiled machine. That question also asked about dates. There are 5 dates on Pharaohs and Pyramid, and I want to say 2 in February and 1 each in November. I'm sorry, October, November, and December. So again, it's a very limited number of departures that are available. So again, those are Pharaohs and Pyramids. We have literally, I want to say 100 departures of Egypt in the Nile, so I won't try to recap those, but they are, they're primarily in the shoulder and high season, the best times to be in Egypt. And we're maximizing the use of the boats as best we can. So there sometimes is an A and a B group. One is going north on up on the Nile, and one is going down, just again to maximize the space that we have available.
Right, and I'll just chime in here briefly. It will not matter which direction you sail. Your experiences and the temples you see are at the end of the trip the same. They just come in slightly different order, but you have the professional Egyptologists with you who tell the story in the right way for you to come to life with each of the temples that you visit. The thing that I would say is worth considering, Egypt is such a fantastic place. Book the longer trip if you can do it. You will not regret it, because 7 days moves really, really fast. 9 days just gives you those extra 2 days. And the 13-day, my trip's 12 days. 13 days is just really a pace where you also get to enjoy some of the luxury accommodations that you have, not just go to bed at 10, get up at 7 and go again. Some of these temples you have to visit earlier in the morning, because if you're at Abu Simbel Temple, what is the highlight? Watching the sunrise over the temple. Because the temple was specifically built to twice in a year have the sun rise, hit the inner core of the temple and illuminate the 3 statues. They did this over 3,500 years ago. They didn't have computers to draw it. They didn't have geometric tools. They sat on the bank of the Nile and measured the sun for days and days, probably years, to figure it out accurately. So those types of things are worth getting up for. You take a nap on the plane, because frankly, once you're up at 30,000 feet, you don't see that much. And so having more days gives you more time to enjoy the mesmerizing country that Egypt is.
And as a personal endorsement, I'm planning to travel on December the 6th on Pharaohs and Pyramids. I've wanted to go back to Egypt kind of sort of sometime when the time was right, and everything on this trip, the time is absolutely right. So I'm planning to visit myself next year.
Excellent.
Perfect. And what I will say is, before we get to that next question, which is what is the Jordan add-on cost? That's the one I'm looking at. Talk to your travel advisor about what you're looking for, because everybody has a personal expectation and what they're trying to achieve with their travel. Like Sean mentioned earlier, there is the option of having a more private element to your experience. So talk to your travel advisor, see what interests you. They will get you the specific pricing for what you're looking for, whatever category on board the ship you're looking for, and get that for you in a quote. So as much as we're giving an overview here, always think it's important to talk to your travel advisor. Having said that, what is the Jordan add-on cost, Sean?
I actually was going to say thanks for that pass, because when you cover the 100 countries in the whole world, I'll admit that I'm a little bit of a generalist and not an expert on the price. So I'm going to punt that back.
You're going to pass on that. Talk to your travel advisor. They're going to be able to get that for you, no problem.
Or it's on our website as well, but I think talk to your travel advisor because they'll have a better plan for your whole trip. And I think you don't want to single out a Jordan extension. I mean, it's a very inexpensive country to visit. Let me just say, I mean, it's a few thousand, maybe I hate to put a price on it, but it's not very much. US.
It's not as costly in a sense as Egypt, because in Egypt, really, a lot of the cost comes from the entrance fees and access to the temples and the ruins, which are managed by the Ministry of Antiquities. The good thing is they use that money to make monuments better, to preserve them properly. For example, in the Valley of the Kings, the tombs are humidity measured, and you don't know upfront which one you get to go and see. They're all spectacular in their own way, depending on what the moisture level is and how many people have been the day before. One may be open, one may not be open. But that's a good thing, because that means what you're doing when a visit happens is you're preserving it for future generations. The Ministry of Tourism takes care of these monuments, preserves them, enhances them to make sure that they last another 1,000 years or longer for future generations to see it. That's not the case everywhere in the world, as many of you know, when it comes to antiquities. Egypt really is doing a very good job. There's always more than can be done, of course, but they're really doing a great job managing that. Jordan, I highly recommend it. Think of it this way: if you're already here, coming a second time is going to cost you far more than adding it on if you have the time to do it.
A great way
because flying is lovely, but it's not that much fun, in my view. At least not.
Yeah, and I do recommend. We recommend just in general doing Jordan first. It is lovely; they do a great job. But from a service level, you will notice that Egypt is the next notch up. And if you're doing Israel, I would do Israel first, then Jordan, then Egypt, just because you always want to end on the highest note. And Egypt, like I said, it's just a well-oiled machine.
Absolutely.
That's a great piece of advice. Okay, I've got a really interesting question here, and I like this one. And Sean, because the last time you were there was 16 years ago, I think this is relevant. This is the question. My husband and I visited Egypt 30 years ago and did a tour to these sites. What are the newest features of the tours, apart from the new museum, that you would highlight?
That isn't the question I wanted to answer, but okay, I'll answer this one too. No, it's just not in order. I'm comfortable answering questions. So, like everybody, we're always looking for new things that we can share with our guests. And I think one of the newest things that we've incorporated in the last few years has been a walking tour of Coptic Cairo. We've got a foodie walking tour. So again, you're having local, almost street food. And again, we're going to places that are considered, safe. There's a public health, Ministry of Public Health that, that these restaurants have to have licenses from, and their friends are dining there and they're not making food to harm their friends. So we're taking you to reputable places, but that's been something that a lot of guests have really gravitated to, I think, as food has become such an important part of so many of our lives. There's a real authenticity to experiencing food. We also have recently featured, or not featured, but started featuring, I guess, for some private tours, visiting some Jewish sites in old Cairo as well. And there's a beautifully restored synagogue there that I've seen the pictures. I've not been myself, but we've actually featured it recently on some very high-end VIP trips. I will say that NK Egypt entertains quite a few celebrities that have come through, and sometimes we've had requests. Is there a Jewish community? And it's a small one, but they have a beautiful synagogue, and we'll open it, privately for people that we bring in. The other question that's on here, if I can kind of dovetail into that one,
Absolutely.
and that is, when we were in Cairo, we stayed at a clubhouse that dignitaries had stayed in. Is it still used for tourists? It is not a place that we use for tourists, generally speaking, but it gives me an opportunity to mention the man who runs our Cairo office. Amr is one of the most connected people that I was just with him last week, actually, at a conference in Las Vegas, and he is the most connected man human being that I have ever met in my life. And I would suggest, I actually jokingly, a couple of years ago, we were hosting a dinner and I happened to be one of his dinner partners. And I said, Amr, if you die before I do, I said, I have a favor. I said, I want 1 hour to have a look at the contacts in your iPhone. And he looked at me and he said, Sean, you don't have to wait. He opens up his iPhone and he said, have a look right now. He has 14,120 contacts, all written in Arabic. So it didn't do me any good. I need more than an hour to have it translated. But I know that, the names in there include politicians, heads of state, not just in the Middle East. He's got several current and former heads and second heads of state that I know are in that contact list. And he's just an extraordinarily well-connected gentleman. So if you went into a private club, if it's still open, we'll get you in, no problem. And he's, like I said, I was with him last week. He was staying at the Cosmopolitan and bailed on our AMK family night. I'm telling on Amr because he was having lunch with the CEO of the largest hotel in town. So he's an incredibly connected gentleman that can open any door. If it's still open to be open, we absolutely can get you in. And another thing, one of our people we were having dinner with last week had been in Egypt with Amr, with our advisory board. And one of the things that he arranged was a private dinner with Mrs. Sadat, the former First Lady of Egypt, in her home. So again, we're able to open some really cool doors. And like I said, I don't know specifically about the private club being normally open for tourists, but if they still have guest rooms, and we'd also give you our advice on whether we thought they were up to standard, because there are, the Four Seasons are beautiful. There's a new St. Regis, there's a Ritz-Carlton. There are some really great hotel properties that, that I think might be more comfortable than an old club, but it might not have the cachet or the memories.
Yeah, I would just add a couple of things. My folks who arrived a day before I was able to join did the Coptic tour of Cairo and were absolutely blown away. And again, with A&K, the guide who did that tour is also the Egyptologist who is with us for the program. So it has that consistency and continuation of storytelling that really makes this destination so fantastic to visit. I would encourage anyone who hasn't been here in the last 15, 20 years to come back. Egypt is a country on the move. It's not just about the antiquities and the monuments that exist. It's tombs constantly being rediscovered, new things being unearthed, a new pyramid being found in Saqqara, whatever it may be, and those things become available for visitors to see. And then one thing that I learned and didn't know on our way from Aswan down to Abu Simbel, the Egyptian government, together with several US entities, is developing a desert project to convert some sand into farmland to grow more wheat for the Egyptian population. I had never even thought of this concept, but it's bringing a whole new way of life into a part of the most arid, dry desert part of the world. And they already have the water in Lake Nasser. So it's, a lot of innovation, new things coming to the table that really make this country mesmerizing to visit. It hasn't lost any of its old charm. Any of its fantastic experiences in the bazaars, the souks, etc. But it keeps evolving and it becomes more modern, and there's new stories to tell. Food, for example, as you mentioned, a cooking class here is something I would have never envisioned 30 years or 25 years ago. I want to do it now because the food has really come along as well. So that's it for me.
That's amazing. Okay, so we are just past the top of the hour, and I like to be mindful of time. We've got a couple questions. I'm going to ask the elephant in the room question. Are there COVID issues What's the status of that? Do you want to share? I won't end with that question though.
I'll tell you what my experience has been and the group experience. The testing and entry protocols are robust. They are manageable. You get a PCR test in the United States or Canada. It has to have a QR code on it and a certificate from a lab that authenticates that it's taken in a lab and not bought on the street. Sounds complicated, actually really isn't. Once you arrive, again, A&K takes you right off the plane gangway into their private arrival process. It was as effortless as it could be. We are wearing masks on transportation tools, any motor coach, any airplane, on the cruise ship when we're in a bubble, so we can do it because it's a private group of folks. If you're traveling with guests that came together for this trip, you wear the mask in public areas. Once you sit down for dinner, you take it off. Every packet of utensils is properly sealed. The restaurants are all taking extra care. The services in the hotel are impeccable, but everybody wears a mask and takes care of it. The entire hospitality industry, staffing really has been vaccinated by the Egyptian government as a priority. And when you read up on UN statistics, Egypt is not faring as well as some other countries on a 100 million population basis, but where you're going in the tourist centers, the guides that travel with you are vaccinated. They even do a quarantine before they join your trip. So absolute measures are taken to keep you safe. And the thing that most people don't know is Egypt has a very robust hospital and medical system in case if something were to happen. Some of the most prestigious US institutions have medical services and hospitals in this country. So I feel 100% safe. I was a bit nervous. My travelers were nervous. Once everybody landed, that all went out the window and we're having an amazing time. And not once have we ever felt unsafe in these last 4 days.
I can't add much to that, but I will say that we are A&K. To this point, we've been relying on what local protocols are. We are requiring vaccination starting January 1st for all passengers, or all guests rather, on all of our group journeys. We were already requiring it on our luxury expedition cruises because the ships required it. We didn't take immediate action on that because worldwide we weren't able to promise that all of the guides and drivers and everybody that you're in immediate contact would be, because the rollout of the vaccine, just like here in the US, was prioritized, and not every country prioritized tourism as the first place. But by January, and most of them will be done by December 1, but by January 1, we can say that all of the guides and people who are in immediate contact are vaccinated in our operations worldwide. For tailor-made private travel, we're going with local, only the local requirements. So there is still opportunity to travel with us, even if you're not vaccinated for whatever reason. But we have taken the decision for vaccinations on our group journeys. And we felt that was kind of as well.
Great. Thank you. So we're going to end on a question. I think it's a great question. It's pretty broad. Other than all the people that are on this call, what are the demographics of your clients?
That's actually a great question to end on. So I'll describe our clients, and I think I'm going to kind of put these in the order of importance. An A&K guest is culturally curious. They are interested in learning about the history and the culture of the place that they're going to visit. They want to talk to locals. They want to understand what's going on politically, what the religion is, what's on the people's minds, what's keeping them up at night. So those are the kinds of people that are traveling with us, just from a mindset standpoint. We typically are not hosting people who are looking to put a pin in their map that, yep, saw a pyramid. We're going to explain why the pyramids are there, why nothing is in them. One piece of advice: if you want to go in the pyramid, just know what you're getting into. There is nothing inside those pyramids. I wasn't paying attention the first time I went, and I was talking in the back about something. Somebody asked me a question, and I got down there. I'm like, "Where's the gold? There's nothing down here." She said, "I told you that." Oh, I'm sorry. I've learned to listen a little bit better in my older years, but so I would say from an age standpoint, we are primarily. Again, the overwhelming majority of our clients are going to be baby boomers and Generation X. We certainly have younger people traveling with us, sometimes on their own. And I will say at all price points. I was on a couple of segments of our private jet around the world a few years ago, and we had a 9 and an 11-year-old with their 35 and 42-year-old parents. So It is all over the map, and that was a 6-figure per person trip, and there was no discount for children. I will say there was a bit of a collective, there are kids on this trip, but they were incredible kids. And one of them had a birthday on Easter Island, and the other guests found out that we were planning a small little party to be away from the guests and not distract anybody. And without fail, every single guest wanted to come to the birthday party of the 9-year-old. So, but we are also, so again, that's kind of the age group. I would say that our clients are entrepreneurial. Many of them either own or have owned businesses. Many of them are in senior level management, some in middle management for sure. We also have heiresses and celebrities and whatever that travel with us, mostly privately. I hesitate to put numbers out there because, like, in terms of household incomes and net worths or whatever, but our average client has at least a 7-figure net worth typically. That's not all of them, but I'd say the overwhelming majority would have a net worth of at least $1 million or more. And on the private jet around the world, it's $3 million or more.
Okay.
I would
Excellent.
add
And yeah, go ahead.
I would add to that it's really ultimately the quality of the experience that you're getting. And in a destination like Egypt, it is absolutely priceless. Money doesn't matter at the end of the day. I mean, yes, you have to pay to get here, but what you're getting for what you're paying,
it's value.
I mean, question that you deliver far above and beyond what you're paying.
And I think the other thing I also want to mention is that Abercrombie & Kent is a logistics company. I mean, we're a tour operator or whatever, but one of the things that we really specialize in is logistics. We have done a run through. We know how long it takes at all times of day to get from point A to point B. And we're also ears to the ground. I like to call us a globally local company because we've got folks on the ground that are paying attention to what's happening, to what's going on. And if there is, if there's something that's happening, a protest, a threat, we are rerouting our guests away from those protests and those threats so that we might visit the pyramids in a couple of days because there was a protest going on the day we were supposed to go. We'll still go back and visit them, but we'll just wait until it's a little bit quieted down. And that's what our guests expect. They're wanting someone else to look out for that kind of stuff and not them have to get up in the morning, read the paper, watch the news locally and see exactly what's going on and try to second guess it. And so that's something that at any economic level, I think guests who are traveling with a tour operator are looking for someone to look out for them, and A&K does that extraordinary. Like we're an extraordinary. We have an extraordinary record of doing that for our guests in 60 years.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I think we're going to end on that. I want to thank you both. Renee, thank you for staying up. Go have a nightcap. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. Renee is on vacation right now. But taking the time to join us. Sean, thank you so much for all your insight and sharing everything with us. And to everybody who joined us, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Talk to your travel advisor. Take advantage of that $250 savings that Sean has graciously offered, and plan your next A&K vacation. And I hesitate to use the word vacation. It's an experience.
Holiday.
A holiday. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and evening, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.